Hello and welcome back for another tutorial, and this time it'll be on rendezvous and docking. This opens up a lot of things that you can do in the game, like building a space station, a spacecraft to go to another planet, or even saving your Kerbal in orbit via one of the contracts to earn yourself money and, well, save another Kerbal. Anyway, let's get to the crux of this. What we have to solve in this is, firstly, we have to have a target to orbit to get to rendezvous with, and here I've got a space station, and to get a rendezvous with it you have to get up into the same orbit as it with it. That's easy enough, but you also have to be at the same time in that orbit, so timing is key with rendezvous, and that is what we're going to get into in this. And also we have to come in slowly to your target. It's not good that having a rocket engine and come pummeling into the space station, smashing it to smithereens, killing all the Kerbals there. And what you want to do is come in slowly. So let's go to the VAB and fix these problems. Okay, here we are in the VAB. We need a rocket, so let's load up the rocket we built for the orbit tutorial, and we'll edit that for our mission. Okay, here we are, and first things first, we need to come in for docking, so let's get rid of that parachute on top, and what we're going to do is a docking port. So go to the utility tab there, and you've got 4 docking ports here to choose from. Make sure you choose the right size. It has to be the one that you're going to dock to on the space station. I've got up there, I've got the small docking port because it fits on top of this rocket, makes things easier. Now let's get rid of the science because we don't need it. This is for rendezvous with the station. And take the ascent stage off there. And now that's essential because what you want to do is you want the fine control. You've got the RCS tanks here, which is the fuel for the RCS systems. You've also got the external tanks, the large and the smaller rounded tank. It's up to you which one you use, but I'm going to use this RCS tank because it's in line with the rocket. It makes things look neater. Now let's put the rocket back under there. Now go into the bottom left and click center mass. This will show the center of the mass of your rocket, and this is essential because now you're going to go to control and you're going to choose the RCS thruster. Now you've got 3 RCS thrusters here. These 2 only give you control in one direction, but that one gives you control in 4 directions. That's what you want. Now zoom into your rocket. You want to place these at the center of that mass. Put your symmetry to 4, obviously. Now place it dead center as you can. The closer the better. And the reason for that is, hopefully I'll show you in a moment, because this is all post commentary, by the way. I've all recorded all this and I'm commentating over it. So let's offset these thrusters. And this isn't exact, but let's change this to rotate. And if your thrusters were down there, it'll tilt your rocket like that if you're going to translate, which translate means you're going to left, right, up, down, and side to side, rather than turning your rocket. And that's what the RCS thrusters are for. It gives you that fine control. Now what you're going to want to do is get that little extra delta V, so you have the extra thrust to get into the same orbit as the other spacecraft. Okay, so what we're going to do is take off the solid rocket boosters from the bottom, and I want to get the FLT 400 fuel tank, put symmetry 4 onto those decouplers, and they will need a rocket engine for them, so let's get the LVT30 engine, place them underneath like such, and now go back to the fuel tanks tab after making sure that the staging is correct, and attach the external fuel duct from the outer tank to the inner tank. And I'll make sure that the fuel from the outer tanks are used first, and then when the outer tanks are jettisoned, we'll have enough fuel on the inner tank, will be full, and we can get up into orbit. I already have that little extra delta V to get up and rendezvous with the space station that's up there. Okay, I will meet you on the launch pad. Okay, here we are on the launch pad, ready to engage in our rendezvous mission. Alright, let's go to map view, bring up the nav ball and select your target and set it as your target. This is essential because it gives you the extra information like the orbit of the other spacecraft or object, and it also gives you a marker, a nav ball, which you can use to point towards or away from it. And it's essential further on. Now, how do you rendezvous with the station? Well, there's two ways. You can either go one into a lower orbit. That way you catch up to your space. You're going faster so you can catch up to the space station, or you can go into higher orbit where the space station can catch up to you. Either way works, but we're going to go into the lower orbit because it uses less fuel and, well, it makes sense. You only have to use that little extra bit of fuel to get up into the higher orbit. So let's go and do that. But first off, let's make sure the space station has passed over, so let's do a bit of time acceleration. And hopefully I'll show you here. I think about here is good enough. By the time we get into orbit, we will be behind it. So let's go and do that now. Okay, getting up into orbit with this rocket it has a little extra thrust, so about half thrust I found seems to be okay from getting off the launch pad up to your desired 10km height. Once your outer fuel tanks are empty and you stage, make sure you press Z to go to full thrust, and you will lose a bit of speed. I know it's not a proper design for a rocket because you need to balance things out. Perhaps I was going too fast on launch, so you can adjust that at your own leisure. See, we're losing speed by here. It's no big deal. We've got enough delta V in this rocket to complete this tutorial. So let's get up there. And this is going to be a standard orbit profile that I've shown you in my orbit tutorial. So if you're not sure, go back and see that. Free advertising. Go on, hurry. And you can come back to this video then. Okay, now we're almost in orbit, and I forgot to mention that the station is in a almost 200km orbit, so we're going to a 100km orbit. Now that's just to keep numbers round, easier to figure out. Okay, after we finish this orbit burn, I will then show you how to actually rendezvous, how to plan your rendezvous. Okay, our orbit is complete. Right, now that we're in orbit, you're going to want to go back to map view, and you see the station over here. What you want to do is create a maneuver node just in front of you. So let's create one here. Let's drag it along a bit. I think it's a bit too close. Okay, now you want to use your maneuver node and adjust your orbit until it intersects the orbit of the station. Now you can see that it's got some new markers. You have two intercept nodes, one up here, and there's not another. Yeah, they're all over the top of each other. You can see it tells you the distance that you will be at the closest approach. Now what you want to do is fiddle with your maneuver node. You can drag it across, and you want to get these as close as possible to each other, and that will be your closest approach. That'll be your your intercept basically. Now they seem to be pretty close here, but let's mouse over them. I can't see it because the periapsis information is in the way, and come on, click it off already, man. Oh, come on. You swear I don't know how to play this game. Okay, there you go. Now we're 13.7 kilometers away from our target, and we need to be a bit closer, so let's bring that maneuver node back up and we can adjust it. You see, we're not totally intercepting that orbit, so let's boost up a bit. 15 kilometers further away. Down a bit, not 13. Okay, let's adjust the position of it. Now this is about adjusting your node until you can get that closest approach. Once you have done that, you have succeeded in the first part of your mission. All you have to do then is burn for that maneuver node. And with this maneuver that we're doing here, all you have to do is move the maneuver node and increase or decrease the thrust. In other words, go prograde or retrograde on the maneuver node. If the target orbit is an angle, you're going to have to do a bit more fancy orbiting techniques, and I haven't shown you that yet in my tutorials, maybe in the future. But let's do the basics first. Okay, we're at 28. No, come on, let's fiddle a bit more with that. That seems close. 3.1 kilometers, and we're going to cut at that. Make sure that your closest approach is under 5 kilometers. So I'm happy with that. So let's go burn that node. Okay, so perhaps now is the best time to mention that you want to burn this node as close as you can. So you can see we're at 4 seconds estimated burn. I put the thrust low this time because we can have a little extra fine control. And make sure that your rocket is pointing at that maneuver node. Essential. As you're getting closer, thrust down slightly. Okay, I'm going to stick with that. 0.4 meters per second is as precise as I can get, I suppose. And once that's close to approach, 4.3 kilometers. Now, there's a couple of things you can do here. You can use the rocket thrust very slightly. And you see we're getting close. A bit more. Just little bursts. 3.1 kilometers. And we can stick at that. If you need to, you can burn retrograde. Or you can do something like this. Now, you've got RCS thrusters. Like press R to engage them. Or click on the RCS button. And use the H and N key to thrust forward and back. Now, going back to map view. Have a look at the node, thrust forward, see it's going up. Now let's thrust backwards by using the N key, and it's going down. Ooh, gone a bit too far, so let's get it back using the H and N keys. And there you go, that's our closest approach. We cannot get any closer than that. Well, we could, but that takes a bit more effort, and we don't need to, because we're getting close as we need to. So let's go and rendezvous. Fast forward time here. And oh yeah, don't forget, press F5 to quick save. At every stage, just in case you mess up, you can go back, press F9 and reload. Now it's probably prudent to point out that perhaps you should use the map view here, fast forward time and get as close as you can. But not too close because you're going to have to do some maneuvers to match your orbit with the target spacecraft, or space station in this case. But I'm going to fast forward. Now you can point your rocket towards the reticle, the purple reticle on the nav ball, and it'll show you which way that it'll appear. And you see it's also showing us how close we are. So you can use the map view. Let's use that at the moment. Get as close as you can, and I'm going to get to about 4 kilometers. And then we're going to start our burn. Now, as you see the nav ball, you can see that it says target on there. And it's also showing a low speed. And that's showing your speed relative to the target. Also, the two, and you see there, switched it over. And also, we've got the prograde vector, which is showing our relative speed, our relative direction that we're traveling in relation to the space station. And we also have the retrograde, and that's where I want you to point at, because you're going to use your rocket now to match your speed with the space station. You want to get that target speed down to 0. So as soon as we're as close as we can be to the space station, we're going to thrust, retrograde, and reduce our speed. Okay, this is the point where you want to get as close as you can. You don't want to brake too late because you're going to overshoot it, and then you have to adjust again for that. Okay, let's thrust, full thrust, and fine control. Let's get this down to 0 or under 1 meters per second. Now, if the retrograde moves about, try to follow it as best you can. Now, I'm happy with that, 0.2 meters per second. And the reason why is because this is just the first stage of having to get closer, because we're still not close enough to dock. Okay. So point yourself at the space station, use the purple marker on the nav ball. As you can see, our prograde vector is kind of close, and what you want to do is get that heading towards the station. So let's thrust a bit, and here you go. Now what I want you to make sure is that target speed of you heading towards the station does not exceed 50 meters per second, especially at this distance. because you don't want to find out you have to brake and you're braking too late and you smash into the space station or your Kerbal or wherever you're rendezvousing with. Okay, so we got close to 0.1 kilometer. That's pretty good. I thought we'd have to do 2 burns to this, but if we carry on, we'll be 62 kilometers away on the next orbit. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to keep an eye on our speed. Let's point retrograde, because as soon as we get the closest approach, I want you to burn retrograde and slow yourself down. Now let's do a bit of time warping. Okay, we're coming in quite close. I think it's best to clear speed now. Get this down to 0. Okay, so this is an example of a perfect rendezvous. We're very close to the station. We can use the RCS thrusters to get closer and dock. But you may find your rendezvous is not this successful. If not, then get as close as you can, reduce your target speed to 0, and then again thrust towards your target. Because the 2 spacecraft are orbiting at slightly different orbits, they're going to drift apart, and you're not going to always be traveling towards their object. So you can see here, I'm doing a slight example. I'm thrusting again towards it using the main rocket, sorry. And we'll get a little closer, and then I'll use the main rocket then to kill our speed. Okay, now to the docking part of the tutorial. Right, with docking, there's one essential thing you should know. Now, first off, set your docking port as control from here. Right click on it. That way you know that your docking port is pointing directly at your target. Now we're going to use our RCS thrusters, use the H key to get closer. There are other controls, I'll let you discover them. You've got the docking controls on the bottom left, which changes your WASD keys to the docking controls. But I want you to use, or I'm used to using the I, J, K and L keys to translate. Now we're getting close, and the docking port we want is under there. So I'm going to set that as the target, and that's what you'll have to do. So now that's set as the target, and we can use that purple reticle to point directly at the docking port. Okay, next thing, I'm going to switch over to the space station, and you see I'm pointing the space station north. That means the docking port is pointing south. And that's essential because when you're going round in orbit, the positions on the side of the station change. So it's hard to dock on the side of a station. It's not impossible, it's just that the places will be swapping between your rocket and the space station. So we're going to point our rocket north. Now both docking ports are aligned in their direction. All we have to do is move a bit closer. In this situation, I'm going to go under the space station, make sure we don't hit it. Use the RCS thrusters to slowly come in. So at this point, do not use a rocket engine. You'll find that you'll go way out of control. Use the RCS thrusters alone. And that's why I put a larger RCS thruster tank on there, is to make sure that we have enough fuel to get us in close. Okay, we're coming close to under it. Let's kill our speed. Okay. Little maneuvers. Now let's go and point north. And you remember that prograde vector? Well, what you want to do now, you see the purple marker, which is the docking port. You're going to want to use your controls. Let's thrust up. Now we've got it. Now use the I, J, K and L keys and adjust that until your marker is right over the purple marker. Your prograde vector is over the purple marker. You can see turning, controlling it, everything affects it. Now, I forgot to mention, I forgot to do it at this point, quick save. So quick save, so we're not, if we can try again if we smash the space station. And also you can change on fine controls. If you press the caps lock key and you see these change from red. Red is coarse, so it gives you big adjustments, and blue means it's fine. So once you turn it to fine, see, it's a lot easier to control. You can get it that little extra precision control coming in docking. Okay, now it's time to slow down. You see we're heading quite fast. Well, this is not too fast, this is quite slow. But you don't want to be plummeting into it, so you can slow down, but still get that reticle, those markers aligned. Come in slowly. Okay, yeah. And once you get close enough, you'll find that there's a magnetic force between the two docking ports, and they'll pull you together. At some points, you may find it easy to disengage the SAS, because sometimes that keeps your rocket going straight when it needs to bend for the magnetic force to align you perfectly. Anyway, we've docked. We've done it. Success! Space dance. And that is the orbital ballet of rendezvous and docking. And it's just as well we've done that, because a couple of things you can do. You can refuel your rocket. As a point, I couldn't remember how to do this by here. Yes, you right click on the tanks and set them. And also, you can do it with the... Okay, let's try it again, come on. I'm sure the right click isn't working on my mouse properly by here. Anyway, we finally do it. We finally transfer the fuel across. This is good if you want a refueling station in orbit. You get your spacecraft into orbit, you refuel it, and then you send your spacecraft off to another planet. So you can have fueling stations in orbits around different planets and set up your own network of fueling stations. Now you can also do this for the monopropellant, the RCS tanks. And it is good that we actually docked, because have you noticed something about our rocket? There were no parachutes on there. And that's why we came to the space station, to collect our parachutes so we can deorbit and return safely. Anyway, if you enjoyed this tutorial and found this helpful, a like would be helpful for me for the video so other people can see this tutorial on how to rendezvous and dock. And also don't forget to like, we've done the like bit. Don't forget to subscribe, because there'll be more tutorials coming to you soon. And where else? Yes, if you want to see a particular tutorial, leave a comment in the comments below. Let me know what you want to know, and I will do my best to make that tutorial for you. Okay, one last thing. We're going to deorbit. Let's check on where we're going to land. Yes, I think perhaps somewhere down in the desert. Now, one little thing. When you're leaving your station or other thing, RCS thrusters do not affect your stations, but main rocket engines do. So make sure you're not pointing your rocket engine at any other object, because it'll buffet it about. But you're okay with RCS thrusters. In real life, this isn't true, because NASA have used the RCS thrusters, and you have to make sure that you use the right ones so you don't hit the station and send it off curtling around in space. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'll do a fast forward of the return to Kerbal, and I'll see you next time. I'm Orbator. Trust me, I'm an engineer.